Hey, thanks for joining me today on this episode of the Verbal Echo podcast. We get to listen to real people's stories of insight, grit, endurance, and maybe a little bit of I can't believe that really happened to you. I'm your host, Monica Martin. Let's get to it. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Verbal Echo podcast. Today, I have a special guest. His name is Mike Tarnow. And Mike is a husband, father, grandfather, U.S. Air Force veteran. He's a voice actor and podcaster. He's also a retired forklift operator and has been married to his beautiful bride since 1989. Early in 2022, he found himself suddenly at the age of 57 diagnosed with stage 2 esophageal cancer. The road of life gave him an unexpected turn, but there was even more to come. His story is full of lessons in faith, tough decisions, and learning to adapt to a new plan. So welcome, Mike.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been fun so far. Can we keep going? It's good.
Yeah. So
whoever it is you just described, I want to meet him because he sounds like a fantastic guy.
Isn't it weird how we hear these bios and we create them and then someone else reads them and it's like, wow, did I do all that stuff? Really?
I know. I was just thinking, man, what an eclectic guy. He sounds pretty good.
He sounds like a kind of guy I'd like to have to a barbecue and
yeah, at least have coffee with him. For goodness sake, it sounds like he's got a lot of stories.
Exactly. So tell us how you got in the world of voice acting. How did that happen?
Oh, my goodness. What a story that is. Do you remember Gilbert Gottfried doing the Aflac Duck? He was the voice of the Aflac Duck for many, many years. And I think it was at the beginning of 2012, after the tsunami in Japan, he lost his job because during a stand-up routine, he made fun of that whole situation. You know how comics do. So he ended up getting fired from Aflac because, unbeknownst to him, 70% of the people that had the Aflac insurance was in Japan, and they didn't appreciate the humor, so they got rid of him and put out an open invitation for anybody who could mimic the Aflac Duck to apply, and it was a 6-figure position. I thought, 6 figures to say Aflac in a duck voice? That sounds right up my alley. So anyway, we a friend of mine and I decided we were going to audition for it, and we never ended up doing it, but it did get me reading more about it, and I started buying equipment here and there and practicing. I practice for about a year every day, and I finally got my first job in December of 2012 as an off-camera voice for a training video in Munich, Germany. So they train people how to put in how to renew kitchens, and I happen to be one of the off-camera voices who was at-home chef type thing. So yeah, that was how it kind of all started, and then it eventually evolved into radio imaging, which is kind of a genre that kind of found me. I didn't necessarily go looking for it, but yeah.
Wow, that's so radio imaging. What's that?
You know, when you're listening to the radio and somebody comes on and says, KZ 106, 100,000 watts of, so you got that guy in the background, and that's kind of what I do. I do a lot of it for overseas radio stations. I've got about maybe 10 stations here in the US that I do it for, but mostly it is overseas. And, so it's just a lot of fun. Over in Great Britain, a lot of it is radio show intros. I'll be talking about, what's coming up on today's show or something about the host of that show. And so I'll record that, and they pop that in the beginning of their shows, and or during their shows, they run some kind of promo on it. And so that's my voice over there. If you travel anywhere in Great Britain, you'll hear my voice just about on every station, seemingly. I have done at least 1,000 jobs for Great Britain and the UK. So it's a lot of fun.
Wow. Yeah. And you sent me some clips of your audio. If anyone's out there that might be interested in hiring Mike for just for a podcast intro or anything like that. It's that's his voice is like, it's like, it's just so smooth. And so I don't even know how to describe it. I mean, like, I wish my voice sounded like that. Maybe not quite as deep, but I mean, like, so what do you have to do as a voice actor to, are there things that you do to prepare your voice? How do you take care? I know that you, had cancer, which is kind of a strange twist of fate, because I assume that you were doing this work before and then you were diagnosed. So what happened?
Well, I started in 2012, so yeah, I was doing it right up until the beginning of last year. And going back to your first point, as far as warming up, you have to warm up your voice. A lot of it is I'll talk to myself in the shower. My wife is used to it now, but I talk to myself in the shower, and I kind of get, and that humidity in the shower kind of helps the vocal cords kind of warm up. And then there's other things, and I don't know if anybody's just listening and not watching on YouTube, but this is a wine cork. And you can put this in your mouth and say the ABCs 2 or 3 times very slowly and very articulately. And then once you take it out, and this is an old trick that was taught to me through a book by a guy named James Alberger. He's fantastic, very old school, but this really works, and it helps you to articulate your words better. Anyway, getting to the cancer thing, everything was fine. I got diagnosed in April, and then I started my chemo and radiation in May. So by the time I hit mid-June, my voice started to go away. They call it, excuse me. It's funny. They call it targeted radiation, and it's got this big fancy machine and everything. And they hit me right in my sternum. And of course, when we were going through the preliminary interviews with the doctor and everything, it's like, this is right near my heart, right near my lungs. Is this going to affect anything else? And they said, no, it's so targeted. It won't affect your heart, won't affect anything else. Well, apparently it affected something else about 8 inches north of there, because my vocal cords went out after about 4 weeks of radiation. And I talked to the techs. I go, is this from the radiation? She says, yes, it is. That's us. I'm like, well, so much for targeted radiation. It affected something about 8, obviously the vocal cords are very sensitive, but you would think that the heart and lungs would be too. But anyway, so I was out of commission for about 3 months with all that. So.
Yeah. I mean, I can imagine. Isn't it funny how, the doctors will tell you one thing, and then the tech people will be like, no. This is what's really happening.
You're getting the real facts from those people. Yes.
Yeah. They're like, don't listen to the doctor.
It does kind of make it, the last couple of years, just living in this country with all the COVID craziness, it does make you kind of raise an eyebrow anytime some expert or doctor says something and they're official. So you just don't know.
I mean, I love modern medical, technology. It's amazing. And I actually have one of my daughters headed off to medical school. So I love our doctors.
That's fantastic.
But I think it's also important to listen to your body, and so that must have been part of when you figured out something was wrong. Like, what was their first clue?
Well, that was an interesting day. I've been taking heartburn medication since I was in my early 30s, and the prescription stuff, and it works great. And every once in a while, you still get it though. I mean, if you got this chronic thing, and so anyway, that kind of chronic heartburn stuff can cause a thing called Barrett's esophagus, which kind of, for lack of a better term, hamburgerizes the normally smooth tissue that's in your esophagus. And it kind of like I was having trouble swallowing vitamins and meat and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, with the medication, everything was been great. But there was one night that I had eaten pizza or something, and it just affected me. So I slept on the couch. Cat was with me. And so about 3 a.m, everything seemed better. I came to bed, and I woke up the next day, and I got in the shower. And in the shower, I'm starting to get dizzy. I'll make the story short. I'm sorry. I'm going to go on too long, but I started to get dizzy. And so I got out of the shower and it was getting worse. And I thought, well, they're not going to find me naked. So, I mean, I went over and I grabbed my underwear and a t-shirt and I passed out, which I am not a pass out person. I have never passed out in my life. That was the first time ever. I was only out for maybe 10 seconds. Woke back up, got up. My wife heard me and she came in there and she's like, what is going on? It's like, I don't know. So I went back to bed, and I'm not one to go back to bed. And I slept until 2:30 that afternoon. So I knew there was something happening there. So of course, my wife being the voice of reason in our relationship, and always has been, probably always will be, forced me to, you got to go to the doctor. You got to go to the doctor. So I went to the doctor, and he said, sounds to me like you have a bleeding ulcer, because there were other signs that I had internal bleeding. So I went and I had a upper GI scope done, and I've had a couple of these done before. That's how they found I had Barrett's esophagus years and years ago. So I went in there and he said, well, if you have a bleeding ulcer, I'll be able to fix it and we'll get you out of here and there'll be no problem. So went in there and they did their thing, came back out, and he comes in the office with us and says, I didn't find a bleeding ulcer. I found a mass. He says, I've been doing this a long time. He says, chances are it looks like cancer to me, but we'll find out. I expedited the biopsy, and we will find out by Monday, and we'll give you a call. Okay. So found out, gave us a call on Monday. And, so anyway, we found out, and we just had to start that process and what we were going to do about it. They did a PET scan, found out that they didn't believe it metastasized anywhere. So that's what made it stage 2. So anyway, that's kind of how all that started. The reason I passed out was because the internal bleeding, my hemoglobin was down below 7, which is not normal hemoglobin levels, I believe, from what I remember, is between 11 and 14. So I was about half of what I should have been. So I just didn't have enough going to my little tiny brain, and I fell over. So,
wow, that's an incredible story. I mean, when you first heard the cancer word, yeah, the word that we all fear, what was your first reaction?
That's a good question. I don't know whether I just kind of put it out of my head or whatever. All I could think about is what's next. Of course, my wife's reaction was much different, but yeah, I didn't really give it a chance to process. I just kind of like, all right, now what? I mean, because my dad died of cancer when I was 16. My mom had cancer twice, and she actually died of old age at 81. So I kind of had a feeling that, cancer was going to come knocking at the door one day. I didn't know it was going to be this quickly, but, I kind of expected it somewhere along the line. So it wasn't a surprise to me. My wife, she put up a very, very strong front. So, it was okay with me. I just figured, it's another adventure. You always have an adventure. I had a blown out disc in my neck about 12 years ago. And when they told me about that, it's like, well, you're going to have surgery. We're going to put a cadaver bone in there, platinum, titanium plate in there and the whole thing, and it's going to be great. So it's like, you kind of get in that mode. It's like, all right, well, now I just got to figure out what's next. So
isn't it funny how they tell you it's going to be great? You're going to be fine.
Yeah. You're going to be fine.
Yeah, it's just a little piece of metal. You'll be fine. You might set off some airport security scanning devices.
Haven't yet so far, though. Yeah, I'm surprised I haven't.
Yeah, I've had some injuries myself, so I had to have my ACL done. Actually, it's been close to 20 years now, but it's fine. It'll be fine.
You're going to be great. You're going to be great. They'll be fine. You're going to be okay. Yeah.
Yeah, you'll be fine. You'll toughen up, soldier, right?
Rub some dirt on it.
Speaking of soldiers, so you were that's what I should have done. Throw some dirt on it. I actually fell into a cactus on a bike in Moab. So that's how I tore my ACL. Not only could I not stand up, I couldn't ride my bike out of there. And I had to pull these cactus spines out of my leg because I fell into a cactus. So ACL story. Anyone who has torn their ACL has a story. I think mine's pretty good.
Yeah, it's really good. I like it. I mean, the cactus kind of adds to it. It's really nice.
Yeah. And then
if you
I had
just
to
fell
get
on the concrete, it'd be different.
Oh, I know. And then I had to hitch a ride with some Jeepers back to the parking lot. And then after that, I was like, okay, my weekend is done. Done. Just done.
Just done. Get the coffee. Yeah. I'm sitting down. Yeah.
Yep. That's it. I think it was a beer, but
well, whatever. Yeah. Whatever works.
Yeah. Like, oh, I need a cocktail for this day.
Totally understand.
Yeah. Gosh. Yeah. But it just, when we go through these injuries, it really, man, boy, we come out stronger,
I totally agree.
It's almost like it's part of the plan.
I totally agree. It's like, and I was raised by, my dad was in World War II and Korean War veteran. And, the whole, you're going to be fine, rub some dirt on it. The whole walk it off type thing. That was kind of the way I was raised. And it was, I never had the, luxury of just kind of sitting around and feeling bad for myself if I ever got hurt or whatever. It's like, well, we'll pour some hydrogen peroxide on it, a little mercurochrome and a Band-Aid, and you were good to go. You were back outside. So, I mean, and kids today maybe mostly don't have that kind of situation when they're growing up. And my son didn't even have that kind of situation. I was much easier on him than my dad was on me, which, is probably, that's my fault. So, but I think that does help you when you get older, much more so than we realize, that, you just don't sit around and feel sorry for yourself. And I think you see too much of that anymore almost,
Yeah, I think about some of the things that I did. I think kids are smarter than we were today.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, we did some pretty dumb stuff. I mean, I did some pretty dumb stuff. I'm alive and I made it through. But I remember one time I was on my bike when I must have been like, I don't know, 10 or 12. And I wiped out on the gravel, got a concussion. And I remember my mom was like, you'll be okay. I'm like, I don't know. I don't think I'm okay. That time we had to go to the emergency room, but I survived. But, I got
a story just like that. If you want to hear it. I mean,
yeah.
I was about 13 and I was riding I had a 10-speed. I had gotten hit by a car on my bike. It wasn't like I was run over or anything, but I got hit by a car and it bent the front rim, and so anyway, and we didn't have money to fix it or whatever. So I had flip-flops on, I had no shirt on, and I had a pair of shorts on. I was riding to the community pool, which is down at the beach, which is kind of like a mucky beach where I lived in Charlotte County. It was not too many good beaches there, but I was riding down there to kind of hang out for the day, and the front wheel was doing its wobble thing. And normally if you reached out and kicked it, it would fix it to where it wasn't hitting the brake. So I'm only about maybe a block from my house, and I reached out and I kicked it, and my flip-flop got caught in the spokes and threw me over the front. How I didn't hit my face to this day, I have no idea, but I landed on my chest and it got gravel all in my chest. And it's kind of like, and there's, it got drops of blood running down my chest. So I go back home and I asked my mom, I was like, what do I do? And she goes, lay on the couch. So I laid on the couch, and she gets the tweezers and pulls the rocks that were left in my chest out. And she goes, okay, you're good to go. So I got on my bike and I went back I went down to the pool at that point. But the chlorine that they put in community pools is really good for healing things, seemingly.
Oh yeah, I've done that. Maybe not
scars.
Gravel in my chest. And that's why you went into the Air Force, right? So tell us about that. So what were your adventures like in the Air Force? What did you end up and thank you for serving.
Oh, you're welcome.
By the way. Yeah.
It was only 4 years back in the 80s. Reagan was president. Everybody was afraid of us. It was a good time to be in. And to be honest, and I cannot say that I grew up wanting to serve my country and think that was, it ended up like that, but that was not my I was never Mr. Patriot or anything like that. But I grew up in a small town and we didn't have a lot of opportunity. There was no money to go to college. And back in 1982, when I graduated, if you didn't have money, you didn't go to college. So I didn't go. I was working and it was a struggle, and I was still living at home with my mother, and I had just turned 19. I'm thinking, I got to do something else. And my dad was in the Army Air Corps, so I knew a little bit about the Air Force through his stories. So I went and took the ASVAB, and they said, you're qualified for just about anything. And so I went in. I ended up as it started out being a closed circuit television tech. It ended up morphing into the ground radio type job. In my first permanent party position. Like I said, I was only in 4 years, so I only had one. So anyway, I took care of a lot of the air traffic control equipment, the radars, the radios, the telephone lines. I took care of all that stuff. So that was a lot of fun. Actually, we had a little our site was called the receiver site, and it was way out in the middle of nowhere on the one end of the runway, and 7 people out there all by ourselves, and we did our jobs, but we had a lot of fun. It was throw the football around when times were slow. It was great. It was great. So I'd do things a little bit differently if I went back in time. I say that, but then I wouldn't meet my wife, and so things would be different. But I would have taken that career path a little bit more seriously, and probably cross-trained to be an air traffic controller. Those guys had it made. They had bonuses, they had all that kind of stuff, and I didn't have any of that. So anyway, that's I've got probably way too many inappropriate stories that I can think of. But yeah, other than that, it was fun though. We had a good time.
Yeah. It sounds like it was a really good experience. Did that help you in your voice career at all? Or was it totally different?
No, not really. I will say that it opened doors for me once I got out, though, because once you have the veteran status, it opens doors for you for jobs that you wouldn't normally get. Like my job that I retired 25 years as a forklift operator. I went to the here in Georgia. I live between Atlanta and Chattanooga, and I went to the unemployment office, which is where a lot of job placement stuff happens in Georgia. So I was over there, and they said, they're hiring at the brewery. I worked for Budweiser for 25 years. They're hiring at the brewery, but there's a lot of people that want to work at the brewery. So there was one guy that I talked to. He only worked with veterans, and he's like, being a veteran, they're going to bump you to the top of the line. And my sister-in-law was going for the same job, and she ended up not getting it. So there was, I don't think she's talked to me maybe 12 times to this day since then. But anyway, that opened that door for me. I made good money. I was not rich by any standard at all, but I had good benefits. It was regular work, and I had overtime. I was able to provide for my family much better than previous generations of my family had been able to do. So I'm very grateful for that. And yes, that military experience does help. At least it did back in 1994 when I got hired over there. So that was very good. So. Yeah,
that's a great story. A lot of my family comes with military backgrounds too. So I'm always interested to hear other people's stories with the military. Some of the stories, luckily, most of my family's stories are pretty good. And they've all had good experiences, and the benefits that you get as a veteran are, wow. There's a lot of great benefits that you're able to receive from serving. So
yeah. I know at least the discounts at Lowe's and Home Depot. I mean, all that helps. But other than that, I really don't get any benefits. And once you make over a certain amount of money, and it's really not that much, it ends up being like $27,000 or whatever. Once you make more than that, the VA doesn't really mess with you too much. So it is kind of geared more for people that are still kind of financially struggling or whatever. But I will say, now you're in Denver, correct? Or you're in Colorado?
I'm west of Denver in the mountains. Yep. Mm-hmm, okay. Near Vail. Mm-hmm.
I was, when I did my training in Aurora, used to be a place called Lowry Air Force Base.
Oh, so,
yeah. I spent, from February to August of 1984 at Lowry. And one fast story from there, we went to see George Carlin in downtown Denver. And I don't remember what the name of the theater was, but we took the bus because, we didn't have any money. We didn't have a stripe on our arm at the time yet. So we went took the bus down to downtown Denver, saw the show. It was great. He was hilarious, especially back then. So when we got out, we realized that the buses stopped running at 11. This was like 12:30 in the morning. So we had to walk about 6.5, 7 miles, something like that, back to the base. So it was in the middle of the night when we got back home. But thankfully, it was a Saturday night and we didn't have to get up so early the next morning.
It wasn't snowing, was it? Because
no.
That would suck.
Yeah, it would. But if you're familiar with Colfax, we had to walk all the way down Colfax, and Colfax can be even back in 1984. That was kind of the hood, So
it's still the hood. You don't want to do that, especially at night. 1 a.m. You don't want to walk 7 miles down Colfax.
Thankfully, it was 3 young guys, and none of us got messed with. Thankfully,
good. Yeah. I wouldn't recommend that anyone out there.
No, stay
you don't want to do that. Some parts of Colfax are okay, but it's like any other city downtown. Like,
sure,
you don't want to be walking around at 1 a.m.
There's parts of Cartersville, Georgia that you don't want to be in you don't want to be at the Walmart at 10 o'clock on a Saturday night here in Cartersville, Georgia, because it's like, you just don't know.
Walmart.
People walking around tweaking on something. You just don't know.
I love Walmart, but we won't go down that. Do you remember that? What was it? A website back? It was like 10 years ago. It was called the People of Walmart.
Do you remember that? Yes. Yes, I do.
Oh man. I would look at that
pictures.
and I would laugh for half an hour. That was such a great, mind distraction. And I don't know if that website is still out there, but
I don't know either. That's a good question.
I don't know.
I always thought that they had taken those pictures in our Cartersville Walmart at midnight on a Friday or Saturday night, because that's exactly what you saw. Yeah.
It was scary. I think some of that stuff, like, I don't know, is that real? I mean, or is it just, I don't know, but that was great fun.
I do see pajamas quite often if I go there. So, I mean, that's still, there's still something to it.
I would like to wear my pajamas in Walmart.
You probably could. I don't think anybody would give you a second look.
Yeah. I did get some really cool ones, like with flamingos and,
Yeah. You could probably buy those there if you wanted to.
I could get those in Florida. The pink flamingo. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's definitely a Florida thing.
So, all right. So, you have a podcast, and you are also on YouTube. Your podcast is "Stay Off My Lawn."
Yeah.
And so, tell me about that.
Get Off My Lawn was taken, so we had to go to Stay Off My Lawn. It ended up being me and another voiceover friend. We started talking every Tuesday. We did a play together on like an old radio show play. It was like 9 of us would get together. We got together 2 or 3 times to practice, and then we did a recording and we put it out there. It ended up being it was after an old radio show from the 40s called My Friend Irma, and it was just a Christmas episode, and we put it out at Christmas time, and I think it was starting at the end of December and ran mostly through the beginning of January, where Richard and I would kind of get together on Zoom every Tuesday. For some reason, Tuesday mornings, both of us were free, and we started chatting. And it seems like it was me one morning. I said, we ought to make this a podcast. You are hilarious. And so we just started, we just tried to do it. And, the first couple are kind of rough, just like anybody else when they first start off. But we've got a good formula down now. And we do make fun of politicians. We talk about the news of the day, and we have a lot of fun doing it. It does lean right, but we do make fun of both, because there's plenty of people on the right and the left that you can make fun of. So it's we have a good time, and we have built up quite a following. We just, as a matter of fact, just before we started our interview, I uploaded episode 26, and so that was we're having a good time.
Nice. And your co-host is, what's his name?
Richard Durrington. And I think that if you just did a Google search of Richard Durrington, there's not enough of those out there, but you'll be able to find his voiceover page, and he's got a very unique voice. If you have any kind of commercial needs or on hold message needs or whatever, he's got a great voice for that. He's very, very folksy. He's from Idaho. And so I'm
neck
here
of the
in
woods.
Georgia.
Yeah, well, kind of a little bit colder and north, a little bit more.
He's actually very warm right now. He said he's on day like 7 or 8 of 100-degree temperatures every day.
Oh, it's been this summer has been unbelievably hot, even for us here in Colorado. We've had heat advisory days, and it's hot. It's a hot one. Yep.
Well, they told us with El Nino coming this year that it was going to be that way. So I guess that we shouldn't be surprised, I guess. So.
Yeah. It's definitely an air conditioning summer for sure.
Yes.
So,
but it's a dry heat. Yeah.
If you were to if someone was aspiring to be a voice actor, what kind of wisdom would you share with them if they were interested in getting into the business?
Oh my goodness gracious. The best thing that I could tell them, and there's a lot of people out there, and this is be a warning. There's a lot of people out there that will separate you from your money, saying that they will make you successful and saying that they will, set up a website, make a demo for you, and you're going to be a star. And they'll take thousands of dollars from you for that. And they make it sound so alluring and make it sound just so attractive that, you'll just fork over that money in a heartbeat. Thankfully, I didn't go down that road because I'm just cynical enough to go, I don't know. So, but what I would say, there's a website, there's a few good websites out there. One is called the Edge Studio, and I don't remember whether it's edgestudio.com or if you just look for Edge Studio in New York City, they have a website where they have a bunch of practice scripts that you can go in there and look at and record for yourself. Get a cheap microphone, something USB that you can buy on Amazon that you don't want to invest a lot of money to begin with, because you don't know whether this is going to be something you'll want to do even once you start it. Even though it seems like something you'd want to do, you may not want to. So, spend maybe $40-$50 on a microphone and just start reading. And there's a forum in there where you can read one of those scripts and post it, and you'll get peer-to-peer feedback. Now, granted, all these other people are brand new also, but just like all of us, we've listened to the radio, most of us, all our life, and we know what's good and what isn't good. So you get halfway decent feedback with all that. And I did that for a year. I posted on there probably twice a week, and for a year, and I listened to a lot of that feedback. And then eventually, by the time that year is up, you'll kind of get a little bit of understanding by looking through YouTube and finding out who is legit and who isn't, hopefully. And, just listen to people, and, there's a lot of good information out there that's free, and to get started out, and that would be what I would do rather than go in there and just pay somebody a bunch of money that says they're gonna turn you into a voice actor. It takes years. You got to have patience. You're not gonna be voicing a osteobiflex nationally tomorrow. But it's and don't pick a genre. Genres will find you. You have to start out with commercial. So start reading commercials. Even if you transcribe commercials that you hear on the radio now, record it. Write down everything they say and record it for yourself. Maybe do it in a different way. There are so many ways to skin a cat when it comes to a commercial. So you can go through and just practice. It's the old Carnegie thing, but it is very, very true. So that would be my advice. Just get a little microphone and work on it. There's a free program where you can record and edit your voice. It's called Audacity, and that's it's very, very good. And there's some great tutorials on YouTube for you to figure out how to do all that and use all the tools that's integrated in that. And that's what I would do. And see if it even matches your personality, because you really have to have a certain kind of personality to enjoy sitting in a room talking to yourself for a couple hours a day.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
well, it's such a unique career. Was there anyone that when you were first learning how to do this, was there a person whose voice that really struck you as, oh, I really want to be like this person? Or
Wow, what a great question. Mike Rowe, as a matter of fact. I think Mike Rowe has one of those
oh, yes,
fantastic voices.
I miss him. Is he still around? I mean, I remember
Yeah,
watching him on the Discovery Channel, and
yeah.
what was
I,
that show
I
he
think
did?
Dirty
Dirty.
Jobs.
Oh, that
Dirty
was
Jobs. Yeah,
awesome.
yeah. I think
Yeah,
he revamped it. It's he's got new episodes out now. It's on Discovery Plus. We cut the cable a while ago and we only stream now, but it's on Discovery Plus. And if you're a veteran, Discovery Plus offers it for $2.99 a month. So, and it's
oh, wow.
unlimited. So yeah, so it's
See, there's another benefit.
there's another tip from your friend. Yes. But yeah, Mike Rowe and of course Morgan Freeman. I mean, he's got. I
Oh,
could
I
never.
love
Yeah.
Morgan Freeman. Oh,
I could never do
yeah.
his voice, but it's like his delivery is just so natural and just so high quality. And it's like, yeah. So if I was ever going to have a bio of my life read or a biography, an autobiography read by one of these, it would be one of those two guys. That's as a matter of fact, when I'm doing any kind of narration, I actually channel Mike Rowe's voice in my head and try to deliver it the same way he would. And so far that's kind of worked, but you got to be your own self too. But yeah, those are the two guys that I super look up to this day. So.
That's interesting. Yeah. Because when you mentioned both of those people, like, oh, I could totally see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think this is one of those things where you're just born with it. You have a great voice, or do you think that anyone could, like not everybody can play guitar, like.
Right. I think almost anybody could do it. Because I've heard people with terrible voices be very good. And just, I mean, I don't mean terrible voices. I mean, voices that you wouldn't expect, voices that are kind of higher pitched. There's two ladies that I know that sound like caricatures. They sound like cartoon voices, and that's their natural voice, and they're successful. They do, one of them does, she lives up in Charlotte. She does a lot of the animation. She was on Cartoon Network. She's done a bunch of characters, and she's great at that. She normally plays like, excuse me, young boys, but she's great. And then there's another lady that I actually did the My Friend Irma show with. And I thought, man, she was putting on that voice. It's really good because she's so consistent, but that's her natural voice. And she lives up in Pittsburgh and she does a great job with everything too. So a lot of people want the regular, average, everyday guy as opposed to like a Mike Rowe type voice, somebody who has that deep quality. And I don't have a deep quality voice. I just have I have kind of a middle of the road, but I do have the ability to kind of go up and down and kind of change it for different things. I've done the old sergeant, get over here before I whoop you, so you've got that. And then you've got the young kid or whatever, the kind of SpongeBob-y, hey, get over here. I don't need this. And so, I mean, there's some people can't do that. And that I can't say that that's necessarily helped me in a lot of ways. It's fun to do, but you get people that will email you all the time and say, I do all these characters. I do Dudley Do Right. Listen to this. And it's like, there's just not a lot of call for that. A lot of it is using your natural voice and being the real person, the person that you would talk over the fence to your next door neighbor, that voice. So you just have to make it sound like you're talking to somebody.
It's more approachable.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
So, I always ask everyone about a crazy story from either your hometown or where you grew up or where you are now. And you have a really interesting story involving a large reptile. So I want to hear this story.
Back when I was in high school, it was, I started high school in 78. So, I mean, the bus stop was always, heck, I think the bus stop back then was a little over a mile away. So you walk down to the bus stop and we had to go over the bridge to a canal. The canals are all over. If you've ever been to Florida, canals are just about everywhere when you are along the coast. So I had to walk over the bridge to the canal, over the canal to get to the bus stop. And then we got on the bus one morning and we started going back over that bridge, and there was an alligator that was laying right in the middle of that bridge. And of course, they had to call the cops, who in turn called the DNR, and it took them about 2 hours to get the alligator out of the way because he was relaxing and enjoying the beautiful morning that it was. And so anyway, yeah, we were 2 hours late to school, and it was, it was kind of fun. So you had to sit on the bus for 2 hours, but thankfully it wasn't 95% humidity like it would have been in the afternoon. So I'm grateful it was in the morning. But yeah, I mean, alligators, we had, that same canal, when we were walking back home, a lot of times, there'd be alligators that would get up on the seawall of those canals and lay on their backs and sun themselves. And, that sounds like a story, but that actually happens. And alligators have this thing. It's almost like a mercury switch in their head that when they lay on their back, they get almost passed out. They get to the point to where they don't they don't have the reflexes that they do when they're upright. And I'll have an environmentalist get mad at me about this, but there's people that will go over there, the young kids anyway, making bad decisions like we talked about earlier, go over there and kind of scratch their belly, and you see their little hands, paws, whatever they are, move a little bit. But man, they never moved until they were ready to get up. They were not moving. So, I mean, that was an opportunity to get killed, which was always fun when you're young.
So these people go up and basically, when you rub your dog's belly and their legs start paddling, and it's just the cutest thing. People are doing that to alligators. Yeah.
Well, I mean, back then, crazy. I mean, it was. Well, we were kids. It wasn't like grown adults. They would have had the common sense not to do that. But yeah, that was another thing. And then of course we go hunting rattlesnakes, which we had a mason jar full of rattlesnake rattles. So it took about 3 years to get. So yeah, I mean. It was a small town, and that's kind of how the atmosphere was. I'm sure it's different today. It's grown quite a bit, but yeah, I mean, we had fun.
Yeah, that's the rattlesnake. I remember seeing those. Like every once in a while, you'll see one in like a little antique store. Just I don't know where people. I don't know if people still do that. I mean, I don't know either.
We have a rattlesnake in our front yard. As a matter of fact, you go to my Instagram and Facebook page, just look up Mike Tarnow, MikeTarnow. You'll be able to go back about 3 weeks, and you'll be able to find a picture of our timber rattler that we found in the front yard a couple of weeks ago. And he lives under my rock we've got a big boulder type thing that is in our landscaping in the front of the yard, and he lives under that. So whether he's got family members in there or what, but he was a baby. He was probably only maybe about 4 feet long. But yeah, it kind of worries me about the indoor-outdoor cat that we have. But
yeah,
she's going to do her thing.
Look at you cohabitating with rattlesnakes and alligators. And
here in the South, it's a different thing. It's we still cohabitate with nature pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, we here in Colorado, there's been a moose that's been frequenting our town, and just the other day, I was out walking my dog and down by the bike path, and this moose pops up out of the bushes, and I got a picture of it, and it was swimming across the river. It was the coolest thing, and this thing was big too. Like I don't know. Don't pet moose.
Awesome.
Like me,
don't pet moose.
Don't
even if they're laying
moose.
On their back. Don't rub their bellies. Yeah.
Oh man.
I've got a friend that lives up in Alaska, and she posted a picture. I think it was last year, where the moose was just standing in the intersection, and it wouldn't move. I mean, she had a green light, and she couldn't go anywhere because this moose was just standing there. Mm-hmm. It's like I don't like people anyway, so don't you're not going anywhere. So it was a great shot, but I mean. Yeah.
Yeah, you cannot push a moose out of the way. Like they are
No,
big.
no. God bless you
Don't
people
mess
for
with
being
them.
out there dealing with
And
that.
don't, yeah, and don't mess with the mama moose. Those are, I mean, the boys, they're bigger, but don't mess with the mama moose.
Oh, especially don't mess with the boys if the mama's around, I would think.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, thanks. Yeah. So you mentioned your podcast. So just if you want to go over, where can people find you,
Sure.
and any other projects you've got going on?
Sure. If you go to stayoffmylawn.us, you can find all our archived episodes and a little bit more about Richard and I, and see whether it's a good fit for you. It's a good way to kill an hour and laugh. When I edit everything, I don't really edit too much. We pop in fake commercials in between. We have 4 segments, so we pop in little things that we've made up. I've got friends in Great Britain that I've had them do bumpers in between the segments. So it's a lot of fun. So anyway, you can go to stayoffmylawn.us and find that there, or you can go to Spotify, iHeart, Google, wherever you find your podcasts. We're on everything. I don't know of a platform we're not on. So that's, that's kind of the main thing. Like I said, it can be a little bit political, but a lot of times it's not necessarily meant to be. It's sort of like, I just can't believe this person said that. That's just so stupid, type thing, which all of us have kind of sat back. My wife's got so many friends that we don't necessarily vote the same way, but we laugh at the same things. So I think there's a genre, there's a niche for this. So it's
nice when you can find correspondences.
Yes.
Even, I think we all have the same need to laugh, regardless of which side of the road you're on. And I think the more commonalities that we can find, the more we can cooperate as a species.
Sure.
'Cause it's tough out there right now, and I don't.
And as long as you're not nasty about things,
yeah,
I don't either.
Yeah.
I agree with you. We've gotten so divided, but I mean, I can't say that we all see things or we all want the same things, but I will say that we have more in common than we realize. If we can take the emotion out of the equation and just talk about what's actually happening and the things that are getting voted on and the things that are passing in certain states or whatever. If we can actually just have a logical, reasonable conversation about that, all of us can find some common ground. I firmly believe that. I've believed that all my life. So
yeah,
I think
that's really,
just calm down. That's all.
Yeah, that's really some good wisdom. And I agree. Let's all can't we all just get along? So you've got your, so you've got Stay Off My Lawn is your podcast. And if someone wanted to find out more about your voiceover business, and how could we find that?
Sure. You can go to MikeTarnow.com, MikeTarnow.com. You can email me directly at MikeTarnowVO@gmail.com. So, I mean, there's all kinds of things. I am working on a project right now that it's taken a little bit longer than I expected to. But a friend of mine, Kendra Rains, she lives up in Arkansas, and we are working on radio imaging together and building a website. And that's going to be called Gator Bite Studios eventually. I think there is a placeholder up there right now. It's got a little bit of information, but we don't have it anywhere near finished yet. But it's called Gator Bite Studios. I think it's .us. I think about it. Anyway, we both like to do this kind of thing. And when you have, I don't know if you've ever heard this on the radio, when you have a male and a female kind of going back and forth with different things, it can be a little bit more interesting, and it kind of makes everything, instead of just the one guy going news, traffic, and weather at the top and bottom of every hour, and that's fine. There's places for that. But I think that when you start going into music radio, 80s, 90s, pop music today, and you have a male and a female going back and forth, it seems like that fits better. And Kendra, I can't say enough good things about her. She's a fantastic lady. And we work very well together. And so anyway, once that website gets done, then that will work out a whole lot better. But I mean, that will be something that I'll post all over my socials. But if you go to any of the social medias now, I'm not a big TikToker. I think I've got 2 things on TikTok, but I'm on Instagram and Facebook. So you can you just do a search for Mike Tarnow and you'll be able to find me. So
awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on and telling us all about this. It's been really interesting. Yeah.
And if you have chronic heartburn, I'll leave you with this. If you do have chronic heartburn, make sure that you stay in contact with your doctor, because you just don't know because this stuff would have been lurking in me if I didn't have that bleeding. The bleeding was caused from that tumor. Actually, there was a vein in it that burst open, and that's why I had all that issues. So, and other than that, I mean, I've got a friend of mine I grew up with. Her brother-in-law found out way too late. I mean, by the time that he was diagnosed, because he had no idea what was going on, he had 6 weeks to live. So, I hate to switch gears and make it serious, but if you do have chronic heartburn, make sure your doctor's in the loop and make sure that you get the scope done, get a scan done, make sure that you're all good. It's just a little bit of stuff from the road I walked down that it will make a difference, especially if you want to be around for your family as you get older. So
right, that's really thanks for sharing that. Yeah, listen to your body, right?
Yep, absolutely, absolutely, no doubt.
All right, well, thanks so much, Mike, for being on, and
well, Monica, you've been a fantastic host. I appreciate this very much.
Yeah, thanks so much.
All right. And let me know if you want to do an intro and outro for your podcast. I'll be more than happy to help you. As long as you link my website, that's all I need. I need a link to my website.
If I have an interesting new intro next week, you guys know where to find Mike.
That's right.
All right. Thanks, everybody. For joining me today. Be sure and hit that subscribe or follow button wherever you listen to great pod content. I'd love it if you could tell a friend about this podcast, and you can find any links mentioned by my guest or by me in the show notes below. Our music is Funk Beats by Ecolix, and you can find them on the Audio Jungle. I'll catch you next time around. See you soon.